As the only female doctor in the urology department, my surgical skills were so exceptional that every time appointment slots opened up, they'd be snatched clean by patients in seconds. But today, I'd been sitting in my office for a full hour without a single patient showing up. When I asked the young nurse what was going on, she looked me up and down with a scornful expression. A woman deliberately staying in the men's clinic. Do you think I don't know what you're really up to? The appointment system opened right on time. 3 seconds later, all slots showed fully booked. This was my normal. As the only female doctor in the urology department, not only was my scalpel steady, but my precision reached millimeter-level accuracy. Patients seeking my care had to fight to snag appointment slots down to the very second. Yet today, I've been sitting in my examination room for a full hour without anyone showing up. The wall clock ticked away steadily. I glanced at my computer screen. The queue list was completely empty. Maintaining my composure, I stood up to pour myself some tea. Just as I took a sip, someone knocked on the examination room door. John, a familiar patient, poked his head in, his face full of confusion. "Dr. Christie, aren't you off work today?" I looked up at him. "What makes you say that?" "I camped out on the app last night to book an appointment, but the system didn't even show your name. I thought you'd gone on vacation or something." John waved his phone at me. Sure enough, the screen showed my name grayed out, unavailable for booking. I set down my teacup, already understanding what had happened. The hospital's appointment system was managed entirely by the nursing station. Doctors only had scheduling privileges. We had no authority to change appointment availability status. I walked out of the examination room and headed straight to the nursing station. The new intern nurse, Fiona, was sitting with her legs crossed, scrolling through videos on her phone. When she saw me approach, she didn't even bother to look up. "Nurse Fiona, why were all of today's appointment slots closed?" I got straight to the point. Hearing my voice, Fiona tossed her phone onto the desk with a cold laugh. "They're closed because they're closed. If no one books, the system automatically shows it is closed." "What? Is Dr. Christie here to inspect my work?" "The system doesn't automatically close slots that are fully booked," I said calmly. "You're new, so if you're unfamiliar with the procedures, I can teach you. But the appointment slots need to be restored immediately." Fiona acted as if she'd heard the world's funniest joke. She suddenly stood up, leaning forward, her knuckles rapping against the desk one tap at a time. "Christie, who are you trying to fool? This is the urology department, a men's clinic. Any man would blush just hearing about this place. And you, a woman, you force your way in here, dealing with all that disgusting stuff every day. Aren't you ashamed? I don't think you're here to treat patients at all. As a fellow woman, I can see right through what you're really thinking." I understood completely. This kind of malice born from gender discrimination, I'd seen it too many times. Arguing would only waste time. I pulled out my phone and right in front of her, dialed the director's internal line. "Dr. Christie, what can I do for you?" "Director, the urology nurse Fiona has closed all of my appointment slots today without authorization, and her attitude has been extremely poor." The line went silent for half a second. Then came the sharp sound of a chair scraping back. "What?" "Dr. Christie, don't worry, I'm coming right over." Fiona rolled her eyes and sneered. "What calling for backup? Are you 3 years old?" I ignored her, hung up, and stood quietly against the wall. Less than 5 minutes later, urgent footsteps echoed through the hallway. The director arrived with beads of sweat on his forehead, practically running. When he saw me, he didn't even pause to catch his breath. He rushed straight to the nursing station and bellowed, "Fiona, who gave you the authority to touch Dr. Christie's appointment slots?" Fiona hadn't expected the director to actually come in person. Her face instantly went pale, but she still stubbornly held her ground. "Director, a woman bossing everyone around in the men's clinic goes against protocol. I was just protecting the hospital's reputation." "Shut up." The director was furious, pointing right at her nose. "Do you have any idea how much medical revenue Dr. Christie brings to this hospital with a single surgery? You're here pushing gender discrimination? Are you here to work or to play boss?" Then he turned to the head nurse, standing nearby, and roared, "Right now. Immediately. Restore all of Dr. Christie's appointment slots. If there's still a system malfunction within 10 minutes, you're all fired." Fiona was completely stunned by this display. She clutched the folder in her hand so tightly that her knuckles turned white from the pressure. The next day, the examination room was as crowded as usual. I kept my head down, writing up medical records. Sitting across from me was a young man looking thoroughly embarrassed. He was a programmer who, due to prolonged sitting and irregular sleep schedules, had developed some unspeakable problems. Dr. Christie, this condition, it can really be cured, right? His voice was extremely low, as if afraid someone outside the door might hear. I didn't look up, typing several lines of medical orders into the computer, my tone calm. As long as you follow my treatment plan, all your indicators will return to normal within a month. Don't worry, this is very common in clinical practice. Just then, the examination room door was violently shoved open. Bang! Fiona strode in. Door shut so tight. What kind of shady business are you doing in here? She looked at the man sitting across from me and said sarcastically, Dr. Christie, already scouting for targets? I think you've been working in urology so long you've developed some weird fantasies about yourself, haven't you? The programmer was so startled his face went pale. He nearly jumped out of his chair. I set down my pen and stared coldly at Fiona. Get out. I'm seeing a patient. Don't interfere. But Fiona not only didn't leave, she doubled down, walking right up to the desk and pointing at the patient's nose. Don't let her fool you. Women like her specifically target young, good-looking guys like you. She pretends to treat patients, but we all know what she's really after. The programmer's face turned bright red. He grabbed his medical records and tried to bolt. I reached out and pressed my hand against the edge of the desk, signaling him not to panic, then turned to Fiona. Are you here to cause trouble or to work? Cause trouble? I'm exposing your true colors. She sneered. Everyone, come take a look at our so-called urology expert. Doors closed in the examination room. Who knows what kind of inappropriate dealings are going on in here? Her voice was extremely loud, drawing more and more curious onlookers from the hallway. Just then, my phone lit up on the desk with a crisp series of notification sounds. The messages were from a pin group chat. Dr. Christie, the prescription you gave me last time worked wonders. When are you free? I prepared a gift for you. Dr. Christie, can you squeeze me in for an appointment? I'll pay whatever you ask. Are you busy? When can you come over to the house? Mr. John's chronic condition was cured thanks to you. Fiona had sharp eyes. Before I could even grab my phone, she lunged forward and snatched it away. Let me see exactly which men you've been fooling around with behind the scenes, she shouted while eagerly unlocking the screen. The moment she looked, the light in her eyes changed completely. Because aside from me, everyone in the group chat was a top-tier figure from various industries. Not only did they praise my miraculous medical skills in the group every day, but they also frequently sent me private requests and invitations. Fiona held the phone high, showing the screen to the crowd gathered at the examination room door, her voice trembling with excitement. Everyone looked clearly. This is her true face. What expert? What medical skills? It's all gained by seducing men. Look, all these men are lining up waiting to date her. This is solid evidence. Instantly, the crowd erupted in discussion. I could feel various gazes sweeping over me, curious, contemptuous, eager to watch the drama unfold. But I simply stood there, watching Fiona coldly, watching her perform with such effort. Just then, a series of urgent footsteps approached. What's going on here? Making such a racket first thing in the morning. What kind of behavior is this? The department head had arrived. He'd been passing by when he heard the commotion and came over with a furrowed brow. Fiona acted as if she'd found her savior. She immediately dropped her aggressive posture and rushed to the department head, her eyes brimming with tears as she pointed at me. Chief, your timing couldn't be better. You must seek justice for the hospital. For us honest, hard-working nurses. Fiona choked up as she handed the phone to the department head. Look at this. Christie, she's just too much. As a doctor, she's carrying on with these shameful activities in the examination room, having inappropriate relationships with so many patients' families. The department head took the phone and glanced at the group chat messages on the screen. When he looked at me again, his eyes clearly showed disgust. Christie, this is absolutely outrageous. As a doctor, Where is your medical ethics? Where is your professional integrity? What is all this? You've completely disgraced the hospital. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even blink. Seeing my attitude, Fiona became even more emboldened. Chief, she was also reported by patients before, which is why I closed. Appointment slots. Now she's gotten even worse, acting like she's so capable. She embellished the story, bringing up the incident when I'd contacted the director, conveniently leaving out that she'd been the one who tampered with the system first. People like this should be fired immediately, or else our hospital's reputation will be ruined by her. The department head's face turned iron gray. He glanced at the crowd of onlookers, then at my expressionless face, and finally slammed his hand on the desk. Suspension. Christy, you're suspended for 1 week effective immediately. Go home and write a thorough self-criticism and reflect deeply. After 1 week, we'll hold a hospital meeting to discuss this further and make a final decision. Until then, you're not to set foot in the examination room. The declaration caused an uproar. Everyone expected me to resist fiercely, or at least defend myself. After all, while I didn't talk much at the hospital normally, I was always decisive in my actions, and my skills were universally recognized as top tier. This kind of punishment was undoubtedly a deep humiliation for me. However, I simply walked straight to the desk and picked up my phone. Then, in front of everyone, I pressed the option to dissolve group chat. Finally, I said coldly, I apologize. Apologize? To whom? For what? I didn't give anyone time to react. I simply dropped those words lightly and left the hospital. A week passed quickly. I just stepped through the hospital entrance with my resignation letter when Fiona raised her voice. Oh, Dr. Christie actually knows to come back? I thought you just packed up and run off. How about it? Did you write your self-criticism with tears streaming down your face? Did you deeply reflect on all those shameful activities of yours? As she spoke, she deliberately covered her mouth and made exaggerated expressions at several nearby nurses watching the drama. I acted as if I hadn't heard anything and walked straight to human resources. When my colleague received my resignation letter, a flash of surprise crossed their eyes. But they didn't say much, just silently began processing the paperwork. Fiona was clearly infuriated by my indifference. She followed behind me relentlessly, her mouth running nonstop. Acting so high and mighty? You think resigning will clear your name? A shameless woman like you should have been kicked out long ago. Save our hospital's reputation from being tainted. I never gave her a single extra glance from start to finish. After submitting my resignation, I began packing my personal belongings, a thermos, a few professional books, and my well-worn stethoscope. There wasn't much. I finished packing quickly. Picking up my bag, I turned and walked out of the examination room without looking back. Fiona continued her sarcastic taunts behind me. I paid no attention, walking all the way to the hospital entrance. The sunlight was just right, warmly falling on me, as if washing away all the gloom. However, just as I was about to step through the gate, a piercing screech of brakes suddenly rang out, followed by a second, a third. Within seconds, 10 identical top-tier luxury cars pulled up in perfect formation right at the hospital entrance. The spectacle immediately stopped every passerby in their tracks. The car doors opened almost simultaneously. 10 pot-bellied executives in suits practically ran out of their vehicles. Their gazes cut straight through the crowd, locking onto me as I was about to leave. Dr. Christie, Dr. Christie, you're finally here. Dr. Christie, why did you dissolve the group chat? Did something happen? We've all been waiting for you. They surrounded me in a chorus of urgent voices. The entire hospital entrance fell dead silent. Every gaze, filled with disbelief, landed on me. I slowly turned around and smiled at Fiona, who still stood frozen in place, her face deathly pale. Fiona's lips trembled. The arrogance from moments ago vanished completely. One of the executives, a silver-haired man with a cane worth more than her annual salary, stepped forward anxiously. Dr. Christie, my father's surgery is scheduled next week. The hospital said you resigned. Tell me that isn't true. Another man immediately spoke over him. My wife has been on the waiting list for 2 months. We turned down treatment abroad because you personally agreed to operate. And my son, another executive added frantically, you're the only doctor who diagnosed his condition correctly after 6 hospitals failed. The crowd around the entrance went completely silent. Only then did people realize something terrifying. These weren't ordinary patients. They were the hospital's biggest donors, the city's wealthiest businessmen, people whose names regularly appeared in financial magazines and television interviews. And every single one of them had come personally for me. The department head rushed downstairs after hearing the commotion. The moment he saw the line of luxury cars, his expression changed dramatically. Mr. Lawson? Mr. Green? Chairman Holt. Cold sweat instantly soaked through his back. The silver-haired executive ignored him entirely and looked only at me. Dr. Christie, if anyone here offended you, just say the word. I'll personally buy this hospital and fire every single person responsible. Fiona staggered backward. Her face had gone so white it looked almost translucent. And no, that's impossible. She pointed at me shakily. She's just a woman in urology. How could all of you possibly know her? The youngest executive turned sharply toward her. You think Dr. Christie is just a doctor? His voice dripped with fury. She pioneered minimally invasive reconstructive techniques this hospital uses to advertise itself. She trained half the specialists in this province. The medical association invited her overseas 3 separate times. And you, his gaze swept over Fiona like a knife. You humiliated her publicly? The surrounding nurses exchanged horrified looks. Some of them finally understood why the hospital director had panicked the moment he heard my appointment slots were closed. The hospital had never made its reputation because of the building. It was because of me. The department head hurried toward me with a forced smile. Dr. Christie, this must all be a misunderstanding. About the suspension, I calmly handed him the resignation confirmation form. It wasn't a misunderstanding. His smile froze. You suspended me publicly without investigating anything. You accused me of unethical conduct based on gossip from an intern nurse. I've already resigned. The words landed like a hammer. The department head's knees nearly buckled. At that exact moment, another car sped into the hospital courtyard. This time, it was the hospital director himself. He practically threw the car door open before the vehicle had fully stopped. Dr. Christie, he rushed over, panting heavily. I was in a conference meeting when I heard what happened. Please, give me an explanation opportunity. Before he could finish, one of the executives interrupted coldly. Explanation? You let your staff drive away the best specialist in the region over office gossip. Another added icily. My company funds 2 of your hospital wings. If Dr. Christie leaves, our partnership ends immediately. The director's face drained of blood. Meanwhile, Fiona finally snapped. This isn't fair. She pointed at me hysterically. She's clearly manipulating these men. Why else would they all defend her? The instant those words left her mouth, even the department head looked horrified. One executive laughed in disbelief. Another simply shook his head. The silver-haired chairman spoke slowly. You really think the world revolves around gender, don't you? She saved my life during a 12-hour surgery. She treated my grandson when every specialist gave up. And you reduced all of that to whether she's a woman. Fiona opened her mouth, but no sound came out. At that moment, the programmer patient from earlier suddenly stepped out from the crowd. His face was red, but his voice was firm. Dr. Christie treated me with more professionalism and respect than anyone I've ever met. She kept my condition confidential when I was too embarrassed to even speak. He glared directly at Fiona. You're the disgusting one here. Several other former patients began speaking up too. She stayed overnight monitoring my father after surgery. She refused extra payment from my family. She answered messages at 2 a.m. during emergencies. Every sentence crushed Fiona further. Her legs finally gave out completely. She collapsed onto the hospital floor. No, I was just trying to protect the hospital. The director exploded. Protect the hospital? You nearly destroyed it. He turned to security immediately. Remove her badge. Effective immediately. Fiona is terminated. and launch a formal disciplinary investigation into the department head for abuse of authority and failure to verify accusations. The department head's face turned gray. "Director, please. Save it for the board meeting." I watched the chaos quietly. Then I picked up my bag again. The director hurried after me desperately. "Dr. Christie, the hospital cannot function without you." I finally looked at him calmly. When Fiona humiliated me the first time, I gave the hospital a chance. When she disrupted my consultation, I gave the hospital another chance. When I was suspended publicly without evidence, I paused briefly. "You already made your choice." The director stood frozen. One of the executives immediately stepped forward. "Dr. Christie, my private medical center has been trying to recruit you for years. Name your terms." Another executive cut in instantly. "No, come to ours. We'll build an entire department around you." The others immediately began arguing over me right there at the hospital entrance. Meanwhile, behind us, countless hospital staff stood pale-faced with regret, because they all understood now. The person they had forced out was the very reason patients trusted the hospital in the first place. 3 days later, the hospital exploded online. Not because of me, because patients started talking. One post after another appeared on local forums and medical platforms. The hospital forced out the surgeon who saved my father. A female specialist was harassed for working in urology. They suspended a doctor without investigation based on rumors. At first, the hospital tried deleting comments. Then former patients began uploading evidence, audio recordings, appointment screenshots, surgery consent forms personally signed by me, messages showing how often I responded to emergencies long after work hours. The situation spiraled out of control within 48 hours. The medical board announced an official investigation. Reporters camped outside the hospital entrance daily, and the first person sacrificed to contain the scandal was Fiona. The hospital released a public statement claiming her actions were personal misconduct unrelated to hospital management. But that only made people angrier, because immediately afterward, another nurse anonymously leaked internal chat records. In those chats, Fiona openly mocked male patients, called urology disgusting, and bragged repeatedly about teaching that arrogant female doctor a lesson. Worse, the department head had responded with laughing emojis. That leak destroyed him overnight. Patients flooded the hospital with transfer requests. Several wealthy clients publicly withdrew donations. One executive terminated a massive partnership contract worth millions. Another moved an entire corporate health program to a competing hospital. Within a week, the hospital's stock value plummeted. Then came the legal notices. The first lawsuit was mine. Defamation, professional misconduct accusations without evidence, public humiliation, workplace harassment, interference with medical practice, violation of patient confidentiality after Fiona snatched and displayed my phone publicly. The programmer patient also filed a complaint. He stated under oath that Fiona's behavior caused severe emotional distress and interrupted active medical treatment. Then more patients joined. One elderly man testified that his surgery had been delayed because Fiona tampered with scheduling access. Another provided security footage showing her entering restricted system controls without authorization. The investigation uncovered something even uglier. Fiona hadn't only targeted me. She had altered appointment priorities for multiple doctors she disliked, accepted gift money from patients seeking earlier consultations, and deleted complaint records from the system. The police became involved shortly after. When officers arrived at her apartment for questioning, neighbors watched as Fiona screamed in the hallway that everyone was framing her. But nobody defended her anymore, not even the department head, because by then, he was fighting for his own survival. The medical board suspended his license pending investigation. The hospital released another statement announcing his temporary administrative leave. Everyone understood what that meant. He was finished. His decades-long career collapsed in less than 2 weeks. Medical journals that once invited him to conferences quietly removed his name from speaker lists. Former colleagues stopped answering his calls. Even as students distanced themselves publicly. As for Fiona, her situation became even worse socially. Videos of her screaming accusations at me inside the examination room leaked online from multiple angles. Millions watched them. The internet gave her a nickname overnight: the gender police nurse. People mocked her relentlessly. Employers who searched her name immediately found articles tied to discrimination, harassment, and ongoing legal investigations. No hospital would touch her. No clinic wanted the risk. Even private practices rejected her applications. Meanwhile, the hospital itself continued collapsing. Top specialists resigned one after another. Patients lost trust completely. Online ratings cratered. Inspection teams found multiple administrative violations unrelated to me because once investigators started digging, years of hidden problems surfaced all at once. By the end of the month, the director personally came to meet me again. This time, he looked 10 years older. He placed a folder on the table quietly. Inside was the official disciplinary outcome. Fiona, terminated permanently, blacklisted from the regional healthcare system pending legal review. Department head, medical license revoked. Hospital administration, fined heavily for workplace discrimination and procedural negligence. The director spoke hoarsely. The board wants to publicly apologize and reinstate you with full authority. I closed the folder gently. No need, because by then I was already standing inside my new medical center. An entire private surgical department built specifically for me. State-of-the-art equipment. My own hand-picked staff. And outside the building, patients lined up around the block before sunrise just to register. Not because of rumors. Not because of publicity, but because in medicine, skill speaks louder than slander. And once the lies collapsed, everyone finally saw exactly who had been carrying the hospital on her back the entire time.